Look at the modern American suburb. You pay $500,000 for a house, and you do not even own the water you drink. The city meters it. They lace it with chlorine and fluoride, and when a drought hits, they make it illegal to water your own garden. You cannot drink gold, and you cannot eat a stock portfolio. The ultimate survival asset in 2026 is not a smart home. It is unrestricted, unmetered, privately owned water. Today we are bypassing the dry, heavily regulated western states. We are hunting for 10 properties hidden in the Appalachian and Ozark Mountains, where $60,000 buys you a solid cabin and a year-round natural spring. We are talking about unlimited free water. Let us break down the geography, the filtration mechanics, and the actual cost of true independence. Number 10. Eureka Springs, Arkansas. We are not looking inside the city limits. We are looking at the deep, unrestricted hollows in Carroll County just outside of town. This entire region sits on top of a massive limestone aquifer. The water literally pushes its way out of the sides of the hills. The population out here is sparse, and the building codes are practically non-existent. The asset you are hunting for is a rough 1970s hunting cabin sitting below a natural hillside seep. You can buy 5 acres in a dry cabin for $55,000. But a natural spring is useless if you do not capture it correctly. You do not just stick a pipe in a mud puddle. You must build a concrete spring box. You dig into the side of the hill until you hit the bedrock where the water is flowing out. You haul 80-pound bags of high-strength concrete mix up the hill. You build a wooden form and pour a 3-foot by 3-foot concrete box directly over the eye of the spring. You pack the outside of the box with bentonite clay to stop surface rainwater from contaminating your drinking water. Inside the box, you install a 1-inch PVC intake pipe covered with a 100-micron stainless steel mesh screen to keep out leaves and insects. Because the spring is up on the hill and your cabin is down in the valley, you do not need a single drop of electricity to move the water. Gravity does the work. You run 1-inch black polyethylene pipe down the mountain. At the cabin, you have 60 pounds per square inch of natural silent water pressure. The city of Los Angeles is spending billions to pipe water across a desert. You just secured an infinite supply of pristine mountain water for $400 in concrete and plastic pipe. Number 9. Mountain City, Tennessee. Tucked into the extreme northeastern corner of Tennessee, Mountain City is a high-altitude Appalachian stronghold. The population is under 3,000. It is surrounded by the Cherokee National Forest. The asset here is a piece of land with a year-round flowing creek. You can buy a 1980s mobile home on a permanent foundation with creek frontage for $65,000. The problem is that the house sits 50 feet higher in elevation than the creek. How do you get the water up the hill without relying on the power grid or expensive solar panels? You use 200-year-old technology. You install a hydraulic ram pump. This is a mechanical water pump that uses the kinetic energy of the flowing creek to hammer a portion of that water straight up the hill. It requires zero electricity. It has only 2 moving parts. You build a small rock dam in the creek to create a drop. You run a rigid Schedule 40 PVC drive pipe down into the ram pump. The water rushes in, a heavy brass check valve slams shut, and the resulting shockwave forces a small amount of water up your delivery pipe to the house. It pumps 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making a slow, rhythmic thumping sound. It pushes water up to a 1,000-gallon black plastic cistern next to your house. You bury the cistern halfway into the ground to keep the water cool and prevent algae growth. A commercial-grade ram pump will cost you about $800. The PVC pipe will cost another $300. You have completely bypassed the municipal water authority. When the power grid goes down and the city water towers run dry, your mechanical pump will just keep thumping, filling your tanks with cold mountain water while the rest of the country panics over bottled water at the grocery store. Number 8. Salem, Missouri. Welcome to the heart of the Missouri Ozarks. Salem is the seat of Dent County. The local economy is driven by timber and agriculture. There are no tech startups here. There are no fancy coffee shops. There is just cheap land and incredible groundwater. The median age is older, and the people want to be left alone. You are looking for an old farm property with a pre-existing artesian well. An artesian well taps into a pressurized aquifer. The water is under so much geologic pressure that it naturally rises to the surface without a pump. You can find an old 3-bedroom farmhouse with an artesian well for $75,000. But there is a gritty reality to Ozark groundwater. It is heavily saturated with dissolved limestone. It is incredibly hard water. If you pipe that directly into your house, the calcium will destroy your water heater in 2 years and clog your shower heads in 6 months. You must become a master of water conditioning. You do not rent a water softener from a corporate service. You buy a heavy-duty, non-electric, twin-tank water softener for $1,200. It uses the kinetic energy of the moving water to run the backwash cycle. But before the water even reaches the softener, you must install a spin-down sediment filter with a 50-micron mesh to catch the sand and grit blowing out of the well casing. You simply open a ball valve at the bottom of the filter once a month to flush the sand into a bucket. It takes 10 seconds. You are managing your own micro-utility company. You trade the monthly water bill for a few bags of water softener salt. The house is cheap, the taxes are practically zero, and your water source is protected by hundreds of feet of solid bedrock. Number 7. Murphy, North Carolina. Murphy sits in the far western tip of North Carolina. It is physically closer to Atlanta, Georgia than it is to its own state capital. It is a haven for off-grid homesteaders and people fleeing the high taxes of the Northeast. You are looking for a property in the deep shaded coves. The asset is a heavy timber cabin fed by a mountain seep. These are properties where the water slowly weeps out of the granite hillside. You can secure a 2-bedroom cabin on 2 acres here for $85,000. But living in the mountains means dealing with freezing temperatures. A surface water pipe will freeze solid in January, expand, and shatter. You must trench your water lines below the frost line. The frost line in Murphy is roughly 18 inches. You do not guess. You rent a heavy-duty walk-behind trencher for $250 a day. You carve a 24-inch deep trench from your spring box all the way down to your cabin. Do not just throw the PEX tubing into the rocky dirt. The sharp mountain shale will chafe the plastic pipe over the years as the ground shifts, causing a catastrophic underground leak. You must bed the pipe. You buy a truckload of fine masonry sand. You lay 3 inches of sand in the bottom of the trench. Lay your 1-inch PEX line and cover it with another 3 inches of sand before you backfill the dirt. You use PEXA tubing with expansion fittings. Do not ever use push to connect shark bite fittings underground. They rely on a rubber O-ring that will eventually fail and rot out in the acidic soil. You do the hard labor once. You bed the pipe, you bury it deep, and you secure a winter-proof water supply that the county cannot meter, tax, or shut off. Number 6. Marlinton, West Virginia. Marlinton is located in Pocahontas County. It is known as the birthplace of rivers. It is one of the most sparsely populated counties east of the Mississippi River. There are no interstate highways here. There is almost no cell phone service because of the National Radio Astronomy Quiet Zone. It is absolute isolation. You are hunting for a riverfront property on the Greenbrier River or one of its major tributaries. You can buy a 1930s block foundation house right on the water for $70,000. But you are not dealing with a pure underground spring here. You are dealing with surface water. River water contains agricultural runoff, animal waste, and parasites like Giardia. You cannot just pump it and drink it. You must build a commercial-grade water purification wall inside your basement. You drop a 12-volt direct current diaphragm pump down by the river. You push the water into the basement into a 3-stage filtration manifold. Stage 1 is a 20-micron pleated sediment filter to catch the mud and river debris. Stage 2 is a 5-micron solid carbon block filter to strip out the agricultural chemicals, pesticides, and chlorine. Stage 3 is a sub-micron ceramic filter that physically blocks bacteria. Finally, the water passes through a 55-watt ultraviolet sterilization tube. The UV light destroys the DNA of any remaining viruses or parasites so they cannot reproduce in your body. The entire filtration wall will cost you roughly $900 to build from scratch. You mount it on a sheet of 3/4-inch plywood. You change the filters every 6 months. You are drinking water that is exponentially cleaner than what comes out of a tap in New York City. You own the river. You own the filtration. You own your survival. Number 5. Mountain View, Arkansas. Deep in the Ozark Mountains lies Stone County. The population of Mountain View is under 3,000. It is famous for old-time folk music and an absolute refusal to modernize. The people here want to be left alone, which makes it a prime target for an asset hunter. You are looking for a 1980s ranch house sitting on a few acres of rocky timber for $75,000. The asset here is a deep limestone well. These wells are drilled 400 feet into the solid Ozark bedrock. The water is pristine, but the mechanical delivery system is your responsibility. When you turn on the kitchen faucet and the water aggressively sputters and spits air, the bladder inside your pressure tank has ruptured. A city dweller panics and calls an emergency plumber who charges $800 just to pull into the driveway. You do not call anyone. You drive to the local farm supply store and buy a 44-gallon Amtrol steel pressure tank for $350. You go to the basement and shut off the 220-volt breaker to the well pump. You drain the entire system using the boiler drain valve at the bottom of the old tank. You use an 18-inch pipe wrench to unthread the heavy brass T-fitting. You haul the heavy, waterlogged dead tank out the back door. You wrap the threads of your new brass T with 4 wraps of Teflon tape and a smear of pipe dope to guarantee a leak-proof seal. Before you turn the water back on, you take a standard tire pressure gauge and check the Schrader valve on the top of the new tank. You must set the air precharge to exactly 38 psi. Then you wire in a brand new 40-60 pressure switch using 12-gauge Romex wire. You flip the breaker. You hear the deep hum of the submersible pump 400 feet underground. The tank fills, the switch clicks off at exactly 60 psi, and you have restored flawless water pressure to your house. You are the utility company, you manage the grid, and you owe nothing to the state. Number 4. Tellico Plains, Tennessee. Tellico Plains sits right on the edge of the Cherokee National Forest. It is a gateway to the Appalachian wilderness. You can buy a rugged 1990s hunting cabin on 3 acres for $6,000. But what if you find a property at the top of a ridge where drilling a well is geographically impossible, or costs $25,000 because the drill rig has to punch through solid granite? You do not drill. You look at the sky. Tellico Plains gets nearly 60 inches of rainfall every single year. Your roof is your reservoir, but you cannot drink rain that washes over an asphalt shingle roof. The petroleum and fiberglass will leach into your water supply. You must strip the roof. You rent a dumpster, tear off the old asphalt shingles with a roofing shovel and throw them away. You cover the roof deck with synthetic underlayment. Then you install 29-gauge painted steel roofing panels using screws with rubber washers. Metal roofs are completely non-toxic and shed water perfectly. You install 6-inch K-style seamless aluminum gutters along the eaves. You route those gutters into massive 275-gallon food-grade IBC totes. You can buy these totes used from agricultural supply companies for $100 each. You must wrap the plastic totes in heavy-duty black tarps or paint them flat black. If sunlight hits stored water, algae will bloom in 48 hours. You plumb 4 of these totes together using 2-inch PVC pipe and heavy rubber bulkhead fittings. You now have over 1,000 gallons of water storage sitting next to your cabin. To get the water inside, you install a 12-volt direct current RV water pump. It runs off a single deep-cycle marine battery hooked to a 100-watt solar panel. The pump automatically kicks on the second you open a faucet. You filter the rainwater through a countertop Berkey gravity water filter equipped with black carbon elements to remove bird droppings and dust. You are harvesting the atmosphere. You have bypassed the granite bedrock entirely and secured your water independence from the clouds. Number 3. Cumberland, Kentucky. Welcome to Harlan County. This is deep Appalachian coal country. The history here is written in blood and coal dust. The mines have largely shut down and the economy retreated, leaving behind incredibly solid 1940s miner houses built with thick dimensional lumber. You can buy a heavily built house on a mountain plot for $45,000. The water asset here is a deep private well, but in coal country, the groundwater comes with a specific chemical curse: iron bacteria and hydrogen sulfide. It smells heavily of rotten eggs, and it will stain your sinks, your toilets, and your clothes a bright rusty orange. A cheap plastic Brita pitcher from a big box store will not do absolutely anything. You need industrial-grade water treatment. You do not pay a water filtration company $4,000 to fix it. You order an air injection oxidizing iron filter equipped with a Fleck 5600 SXT digital control valve. The entire unit costs $850 delivered to your door. This is how you defeat the iron. The control valve maintains a pocket of compressed air at the top of the massive fiberglass media tank. When your well water passes through that pocket of air, the dissolved iron and sulfur gas are instantly oxidized into solid rust particles. The water then pushes through a deep bed of manganese dioxide media which traps the physical rust. Every 3 days at 2 in the morning, the digital valve automatically backwashes the trapped rust out a drain hose and regenerates the air pocket. You install this massive tank in your basement. You cut into your 3/4-inch copper main water line using a rotary pipe cutter. You use a propane torch, flux paste, and lead-free solder to sweat new copper fittings directly into the bypass valve of the filter. You do not use cheap plastic shark bite fittings. You master the flame. You eliminate the sulfur. You take water that smells like a swamp and turn it into pristine, odorless drinking water. You have conquered the geology of Harlan County. Number 2. West Union, West Virginia. Located in Doddridge County, West Union is a place defined by extreme isolation and steep, densely forested hills. You are hunting for a legacy 19th century farmstead. You can find a deteriorating but structurally sound farmhouse on 10 acres for $65,000. The ultimate survival asset on these old properties is the hand-dug well. These are massive vertical shafts, 4 feet wide and 40 feet deep, lined by hand with fieldstone by the original settlers over 100 years ago. They hold thousands of gallons of cold earth water, but they are highly susceptible to surface water runoff and coliform bacteria. You must sanitize the well and seal it against the modern world. First, you calculate the total volume of water sitting in the stone shaft. You pour exactly 3 gallons of unscented liquid bleach directly down the shaft to achieve a 100 parts per million chlorine shock. You let that toxic concentration sit for 24 hours to murder every trace of bacteria, mold, and root rot in the stone walls. Then you drop a trash pump down the shaft and pump it out into the woods until the chlorine smell is completely gone. To extract the water for daily use, you do not drop an expensive modern submersible pump down a shallow hand-dug well. The sediment will destroy the impeller. You mount a half-horsepower cast-iron shallow well jet pump inside your basement. You run a 1-inch thick walled high-density polyethylene suction line down into the well water. You attach a heavy brass foot valve to the bottom of the line so the water never flows backward and the pump never loses its prime. The cast iron pump costs $300. The brass foot valve costs $30. Finally, you mix up a thick batch of hydraulic cement. You trowel it heavily around the top stone perimeter of the well shaft and set a heavy precast concrete well cap over the opening. You seal it so no rainwater, mice, or surface runoff can ever seep down the sides. You have resurrected a 19th century water source using 20th century cast iron and 21st century sanitation protocols. Number 1. Robbinsville, North Carolina. Graham County is the most remote county in North Carolina. 2/3 of the land is federally protected inside the Nantahala National Forest. It is a maze of steep mountains, deep gorges, and absolute silence. You are hunting for the ultimate off-grid prize, a heavy timber A-frame cabin sitting on a steep mountain parcel for $85,000. You do not care about the condition of the kitchen. You only care about the flowing mountain spring located 100 feet in elevation above the cabin. Water weighs 8.3 pounds per gallon. The physics of gravity dictate that every 2.3 feet of vertical drop generates 1 psi of static water pressure. A 100-foot vertical drop gives you roughly 43 psi at your kitchen sink. That is identical to standard city water pressure, powered entirely and forever by the rotational gravity of the Earth. But a spring can slow down during a dry August. You need massive volume storage. You do not use plastic above-ground tanks that will freeze and crack in a mountain winter. You hire a local excavator with a backhoe. You have them dig a massive hole into the side of the mountain just below the spring. You drop in a brand new 1,500-gallon precast concrete septic tank. But you never use it for sewage. You are using it as a subterranean water vault. Concrete is inherently porous. Before they bury the tank, you must climb inside that dark concrete box. You wear a heavy-duty dual-cartridge respirator. You take a paint roller and apply 2 thick coats of potable water-grade epoxy sealant onto the interior concrete walls. The specialized epoxy costs $250 a gallon, but it creates a glass-like, waterproof, food-safe barrier inside the concrete. You pipe the mountain spring directly into the concrete vault, and you pipe the vault down the mountain to your cabin. The backhoe buries the tank under 3 feet of mountain dirt. The thermal mass of the Earth keeps your 1,500 gallons of water at a constant 52 degrees all year round. It never freezes in January. It never gets warm in July. It never sees the sunlight, so algae cannot physically exist. You do not have a monthly water bill. You do not have an electric well pump that can fail during a grid collapse. You do not have a smart meter transmitting your usage data to a municipal database. You have absolute, silent, unbreakable autonomy. You sit on the porch of your heavy timber cabin deep in the Carolina mountains, and you listen to the water run. The system relies on gravity. and gravity never breaks down. This is not just a house, this is a fortress of absolute self-reliance.